Hi, yeah, I'm Don Marshall. Earlier on, you were talking about how it's important that you ensure that education is appropriate for all children, which I think is a really good thing. And I just want to ask the question that how is the current sex education material from RHSP appropriate for any child, let alone all children? And I'm talking particularly about the lessons on pornography and normalising it, which personally I'm totally against. And the second part of the question is, as a parent, because I disagree with this, how could I get my voice heard? Because I don't know a parent who actually supports the teaching of that material. How can we get our voice heard to change it?
Finally, the question that Don raised about relationships, sexual health and parenthood education. We've gone through a very detailed, extensive process of trying to prepare age-appropriate material in this respect. Now, I accept that some parents will. Now, why have we done that? We've done that because young people are quite readily able now to have access to a range of material which they have to be able to understand, and we have to try to equip them to handle. Now, I quite appreciate that some parents will take the view that that is exclusively the responsibility of their parents. And I understand and I respect that view. But I also feel that in a curriculum that lays such heavy emphasis on literacy, numeracy and health and well-being, we equally have a duty, because there's enough parliamentary pressure on me to make sure that that is the case as well. Now, so that's why it's been provided. It's gone through extensive consultation and dialogue. It's involved many organisations, a whole range of different bodies to have been part of the sounding board of constructing this material. And I've viewed it myself and I've interacted with it, and I appreciate there are some parts of it that parents will find challenging. But the judgment I arrived at about it was based on the evidence that I saw that young people could quite readily have access to some of this material without the context and understanding to be able to deal with that. And I think it's important that young people are able to deal with that in that fashion. Now, if you have concerns about it at an individual level, there is always the room for you to, there is not the room, there is the opportunity for you to raise that with individual schools. And I think that's again down to the nature of good quality parental relationships, where we have to respect the fact that as citizens, we will take different views, we will have different approaches, and we should respect that and come to an accommodation that meets the requirements of everybody.
I also noticed you changed a term in your budget work. You shifted in places from using the term mother to birthing people rather than mother. Can you help me get a good definition of birthing people?
Well, I'll check on the language there, but I think if we're talking about those who give birth, I think we're talking about, I don't know how else to explain it to you other than
I was a little taken back when I just read it and saw it, that the term mother was gone in spots and it was replaced with birthing people. And I didn't know if this was a direction that you were going, if there were shifts, if there are regulatory changes that are happening related to that, or what the purpose of that is.
I think it's probably, and again, I'd have to go back and take a look at the language that was used in the budget, but I think it simply reflects the work that's being done.
Oh, I definitely get that. I would only say, the language is important always. We don't want to offend in our language. I get that. But would you at least admit calling a mom a birthing person could be offensive to some moms, that they don't want to get like a happy birthing person card in May? Or, I mean, can you at least admit that that term itself could be offensive to some moms?
Senator, I'll go back and take a look at the the terminology that was used, and I can get back to you. But again, if we're trying to be precise in the language that's used.
Mom's a pretty good word. That's worked for a while, and I think that's pretty precise as well.
Thank you very much. Just before I ask my question, I'd just say to Mr. Sweeney, I think you've been put on the spot with a few individual cases today, which I think is a very difficult position for you, and I think you've handled that very sensitively. Anyway, moving on to my question, is following on from the previous question about the sex education resources, and I think your answer didn't actually face up to the content of the RSHP resources. I mean, just to go through a few of the things very, very quickly. I mean, right at the beginning of primary school, teaching that sex is assigned at birth and gender is a subjective factor. I think that's a very dangerous and confusing message for young people, and yet that's what's delivered to all children in Scottish schools. The sex education materials, I'm sorry to have to talk about these things, but this is what is being taught in schools. Masturbation is positively promoted in schools. In high schools, licking the anus is...
Remember that we are going live out here. This is
okay, if this... This is what's being taught in schools. If this is not suitable to talk about with a group of adults, how can it possibly be suitable to talk about in schools? Yes, on the internet, yeah, that's fine. Right, so to continue, I'm not going to be stopped. So that's presented as a perfectly valid sexual practice. Anal sex is illustrated by a video of a banana being dipped into Nutella and then withdrawn. Pornography, Right, pornography. No, I'm going to say here, this is what's being taught in schools. Pornography is not just taught about, it is positively promoted in these materials. It is positively promoted as something beneficial and helpful. Different genres of pornography are also recommended to pupils. Such as, again, my question very soon.
Please.
I'm just referring to the resources. Mr. Sweeney says he's watched them. I'm just pointing out what's in them. For example, it's recommended that pupils explore, for example, facial pornography, which involves ejaculation onto the face. I think it's disgusting. It talks about... Okay, what I'm talking about is what's being taught in schools. And if I'm about to get to a question, if I haven't been silent, I'm trying to speak up on behalf of innocents and youth in our schools that's been corrupted by these materials. I will not be silenced.
What's the question?
And my question is...
I'm not asking you to be silenced, but please...
Well, where's the microphone then?
If you'll ask your question...
I'll ask my question.
Nobody's going to get the microphone up yet, but please.
Okay, this situation here. Okay, this situation. I am outlining the question. Please. I am outlining the contents of the Scottish Government sex education resources. That's what I have done. I will now ask my question. My question to Mr. Sweeney. These materials are not educational, they're corrupting of children. And my question is, having heard some of the detail of the content, I now invite you to re-endorse them, reaffirm your endorsement of them, as you did earlier on. Lastly, gentlemen's comments about relationships, sexual health and parenthood. Now, I accept that in this material there is there's some very sensitive territory covered. And that's why I answered the gentleman's question in the fashion that I did, that I appreciate there will be a range of views about whether this is appropriate material to be undertaken. A lot of care has been taken and a lot of dialogue and consultation to ensure that the contents of the material are truly age appropriate. And that has involved extensive dialogue with a number of organisations whose confidence I have wanted to make sure was in place around these materials. And one of the most significant points that has driven this debate has been, what do we need responsibly to ensure young people are equipped to handle from the world that is swirling around about them? It's promoting nothing.
that is a process, and the organisation Stonewall, of course, was right at the heart of that, and to this day does very good work for people who rely on its services and its...
At the end of the day, masturbation is a safe and healthy activity, so put on some music, light those candles, and have yourself a good night.
Hey you, my name is Thomas Tomscott-Ridgell, and pornography is as fun to watch as it is hard to forget. So much flesh. The whole purpose of pornography is to arouse us, to get us sexually excited, and that's great because using your actual imagination is hard work. Porn is great to watch while we're getting intimate with ourselves because it doesn't just turn us on, it also distracts us from how stupid we look while we're doing it. If you want to see more than straight white people getting it on, you might have to be a little more specific. There are plenty of types of porn, including but not limited to softcore, hardcore, lesbian, thespian, interracial, facial,
And only 40% of women have tried anal.
It is equipping young people with a knowledge and an understanding of what they can make their judgments about as responsible citizens in our society. Now, it is a changed world. It's a very changed world. It does not. It does not. It promotes nothing. It promotes nothing. It simply deals with the world as it is and makes sure that young people are equipped to handle that. Now, as I said to the gentleman here, I understand there will be parental opinion that will not like this, and that should be the source of dialogue with schools to resolve that issue. And you asked me to express my commendation for the materials. I repeat my commendation for the materials here. I've explained that in public communication from the government's behalf. I've also accepted the fact that there will be divided opinions about this. But I don't think we can allow our young people to be able, without context, to see things and experience things in our society that we have not properly equipped them for. I also have to be mindful of where is parliamentary opinion on all these questions. I'm a servant of Parliament, and I take my responsibility to Parliament deeply seriously. And I'm not trying to say what I'm about to say. I'm not trying in any way to suggest Parliament has forced this upon me, because it has not done so. But parliamentary opinion was very concerned that the previous materials that we had available did not properly equip young people for the world today, and also, crucially, that there was not sufficient understanding of the concept of consent, which is absolutely fundamental to every aspect of life, about how we treat each other as fellow human beings, how we interact. And Parliament was saying to me forcefully, this is weak. And we've addressed that through a careful process. It's taken us a long time, a lot of dialogue. I've wanted to be assured that organisations that would be sensitive about this were as comfortable as they could be about it. But I accept that some people will not be supportive of that material, and all I can say is I respect that diversity of opinion, but I feel I've got a duty to do the right thing on this issue.